The reason I made Knowles cover the Olympics, I don't watch the Olympics. I cannot stand them. I find them excruciating. And one of the reasons, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons is that so many of the events are not sports. To me, a sport is an objective event. It has points. Somehow, you somehow score points or runs or whatever they call them, and whoever has more of those at the end wins. So you know, right? You hit the ball out of the park, you get a home run, that is a point. It's a run. If you score, run across the goal into the, run across the line into the goal, across the goal line, you get 6 points. That's a touchdown. There are points. Whoever gets the most points win, or if it's golf, whoever gets the less points, whatever it is. There's not some guy just telling you what it is. Obviously, there are referees. Referees make mistakes, and they're human, and that's part of the game. You have a conversation. But in so many of these things, like figure skating and the ski jumps and freestyle ski jumping, it's just the judges giving points. And for me, the difference between sport and that is the exact same difference between capitalism and socialism. In capitalism, you compete. You compete directly. You try to make something better. And freedom in general. You have to have better ideas. Here's my idea. People should be free. Women should have equal rights. Here's your idea. Women should wear burqas and not get to drive. Let's see which one of those ideas in the field of competition. Let's see which idea wins. I invent a phone that looks like this and has this. You invent one that has this and has this. Which phone is better? It's all competition. But what socialism is, and what the global elites want, is they want a world in which they sit and you have an idea and they just hold up a sign. Yes, we'll give that idea 9.9. No, that idea takes my power and money away. That's just a 5.6. And of course, once you have that system, once it's all based on the judges, once winning and losing are all based on the judges will become corrupt. They may not become corrupt in the first generation, but they will definitely become corrupt in the second generation. So every time I watch this, the Olympics, I just think that's not sports. Some guy holding up a sign. And it's not like I can't watch fun skiing and stuff like that. But it's not a competition. Just show me, and I'll just say that was amazing. So a lot of the news, as far as I'm concerned, has been about the way that the media, Kim Jong-un's sister was there, and it was embarrassing. And Knowles will talk about this, but they just praised Kim Jong-un's sister and the Korean, this synchronized dance team they had. So they're sitting there. This is one of the most corrupt, murderous, oppressive regimes. I mean, these are the guys they murdered. Kim Jong-un had his brother-in-law, I think it was, murdered, half-brother, murdered in an airport. They put that cloth over his mouth and it was just like hideous stuff. But people are being sent overseas as slave labor. North Koreans are being sent overseas as slave labor. They're being thrown in prison. They're disappearing. Do we have that picture of North Korea and South Korea from the sky? There it is. You can just see South Korea with freedom. It's all lit up. You can see it. North Korea, you see a little dot. That's the capital. Otherwise, it's black. And they're starving. People are starving. They're crawling out of there any way they can. And so the press is praising them. And so you could just say, well, it's Trump derangement syndrome. Trump says black, they say white. He says up, they say down. He says freedom, they say North Korea. Hooray! That's how nuts they are. But the fact is, the press has been using the Olympics to praise tyranny for a long, long time. Our friends at one of my favorite websites, MRC's Newsbusters, put together a series of coverage from the Olympics, since going back to the 90s. And I had the guys here splice it into a montage. This is the kind of coverage you've been getting from the Olympics and why it's so hard for me to stomach it.
Try not to laugh when someone says these are the world's greatest athletes, despite a paucity of blacks that makes the Winter Games look like a GOP convention.
The revolution that birthed one of modern history's pivotal experiments.
In Korea, Cuba, Vietnam, and space, the U.S. spared little to defeat communism. At times, it seemed like a national obsession.
Stalin promised the metro would be a palace for the people, and so it is. Open architecture, mosaics, even chandeliers.
From designer clothes to new cars, China is getting rich. Democracies once bragged that theirs was the only way to economic success. China is doing it the communist way.
It's fascinating, though, to see how generous the maternity benefits are in this country. And that men can sort of switch roles with their wives and get that 42 weeks paid leave.
Yeah, Paula, you and I have been talking about we want to send our kids, we want to move here and put our kids in school here. The kids are treated so well. I think we have a lot to learn from these folks.
I think you're right.
We want to express our nationalism as a part of the world's community, and I expect to see that.
But we have to also be careful and draw a line not to let our patriotism get in the way of the games in general.
Obviously, the opening ceremony, the games themselves, will be very patriotic in feel. And yet, sometimes the international community can interpret that as arrogant nationalism. Obviously, you've got to balance those two things.
So we don't want too much patriotism from the Americans, but we're going to celebrate Stalin's subway. That's Stalin. He makes a great, he's killed my wife and children, but he makes a great subway. In China, they're getting rich the communist way. I mean, this is something they've been doing for a long time. Back in 1936, Kim Jong-un's philosophical predecessor, a guy named Adolf Hitler, who you may have heard of, he had the Olympics in Germany. Here is the New York Herald Tribune covering that. This is their international edition. In a riot of color and music and ceremonial splendor that could not be dimmed by leaden skies and occasional showers, the 16-day period of the Berlin Olympic Games, celebrating the 11th Olympiad of modern times, was inaugurated today under the patronage of Chancellor Adolf Hitler, leader of the German people, with royalty and nobility and diplomats and commoners and athletes of 50 nations participating in a Germanized festival that overshadowed the sports pageant itself. Homage to Hitler all through the ceremony stood out boldly against the setting of the Olympic opening ritual. Hitler's arrival, signaled by a trumpet solo from the huge towers that form the marathon gateway to the stadium, was taken up by a 100-piece symphony orchestra, which burst into Deutschland über alles as the entire crowd sang the refrains. There was mild applause when the American team appeared through the marathon gate, but nothing to compare with the ovations to Bulgaria, France, and later Austria. As the Americans were marching past Hitler, the German array appeared on their heels, and the Americans were promptly and completely ignored. Now, I'm not saying that they were supporting Hitler there. I'm just saying that this is like, an emptiness of thought, that it does promote the idea that if we're unpopular, we're wrong. It's entirely possible that we can get the fewest cheers and still be in the right. And